77?
77? Is that, I don't know. I'm just repeating a number.
38? 24? Bingo.
Mm.
Still here.
That's coming back in.
It's coming back in. We're going to make Still Here shirt merch.
Yeah. So the topic, I don't know if it's going to be difficult to dive into. It's difficult to think about it because the brain starts to hurt. But this is something that we've been discussing and I've been guided into, kind of like being pushed into.
Everything you believe is wrong.
Yeah, but that, we need to dive into what that actually means.
Right. And is that different from everything you know is wrong?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where to start on that.
No, so to begin with, this is kind of the parameters under which you have to look at this construct in order to be able to see it for what it is, and then be able to actually start looking above it. And I'll just mention this in the beginning. I started reading Thomas Campbell's book, and he did a lot of out-of-body experience with remote viewing with Robert Monroe. And so I think we watched a documentary on them, and then I just was guided to start reading that book. So I'm in the beginnings of that book, but the premise as like theory of everything is there's just, I think, is going to go into lucid nature of our reality, or how lucid our reality can be foreseen, right? I think that's what it comes down to.
What do you mean lucid? Like your experience of it?
Well, I guess this is maybe the best way to introduce it. Back when I had the experience that I was giving, where I was basically not this form. Remember, I keep on bringing this up, but this is the best way I can dive into it. Is I'm not this form, and this is an experiential vehicle for me, right? In this reality, or in this construct, whatever you want to call it. And what brings us into this plane, or what has me talking to you right now, is the structure that is our belief system, right? So quite literally, what locks us into place, into a specific experience that we have come here to have, is this descent down through, quite literally, like definitions. And definitions are our beliefs. And I know other people talk about beliefs and definitions and structures and how that holds and creates a reality. That's the same thing. But the reason why I say it and it's so profound to me is because I literally got to experience a place where I was not defined, like quite literally undefined. And then as I started to wake up, they brought me through the cognitive awareness of what it means to come back into this body. And I had that twice now in two different forms. And so that descent into the Tanya, into definition of Tanya, was so stark to the non-definitional Tanya, let's say, my higher self, right? Or self without the definition of this construct, that it became very obvious that the beliefs quite literally lock my experience, or me, or my existence into place.
Well, they define your reality.
Why do they define my reality? But my reality is defined by my vibrational frequency that I choose to take on in these beliefs. So it's larger than that.
Your beliefs determine your vibrational frequency, and that's what determines your reality. 2 steps removed, almost.
The definitions determine the frequency, and then the frequency that's in the beliefs.
But say that again.
Definition. So I'm bringing in definitions, right? Definitions come in and they're vague. Definitions can be very vague, right? But they come in with a frequency. And then the frequency of the definition is basically the belief structure. Definitions feed the beliefs, right? Or thus is the structure, feed the structure.
Okay.
So the construct of you, right, in this example, like if you believe that you are a white male with, I don't know, brownish hair and blue eyes, right? quite
Thank
literally.
you for not saying gray.
Right, that is quite literally the definition that comes in, and then you grab onto it as you believe, and then they establish is so. Right? So when you come here and your soul contract comes here for a very specific experience, you will come on to get to know definitions. You'll be like, oh, well, here's a definition of this, and here's a definition of this, and here's a definition of that. And then you form your structural form in order to consolidate that and to make it you that will start to believe.
Okay.
And thus creates reality, creates not only form, but then also your experiences in life, very specific to the definitions that you came here to take on.
Maybe an easier one to just to swallow is like, oh, I if somebody believes that they're they're stuck in this job or they'll never get out of it, or or on the other side, maybe like someone like Elon Musk, who probably does not have very many limiting beliefs. He, oh, I'll make rockets. Sure, why not? I'll make cars, electric cars. Sure, why not? Just, those two, right? Both of those examples are living in a universe constrained by those beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of them is a lot less constrained than the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, his belief is almost the belief that there's no constraint.
Right. Which, I mean, if you're going to have a belief, it could do worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, most people are, in my experience, and, I say that from personal experience too, kind of locked into some sort of, I would say, negative belief, restricting belief about
They're both
their
negative
life.
and positive.
Yeah, but the ones that are, that most people would want to change are the negative ones.
Yeah, but that's the thing is this is, we have spent podcasts talking about how to change them and how to identify and how to be them or not be them or whatever. What this is recognize that your entire belief structure is wrong because you came here to experience a very precise set of definitions that feed in and basically design that belief structure. And so if you want to start opening your mind to higher scopes, this is what the brain breaks, is that we have to go one step higher. And it's not, oh, most people have negative beliefs and some people have positive beliefs and Elon has this and person who can quit their job has that, right? All of that is a construct of a belief system. All of it, good and bad. I mean, that's why I was giving your body as an example, right? Because you that's not good or bad. That's just a construct.
Right.
That just is.
Right.
But that within itself is basically wrong.
So what does it mean to step outside of that?
Yeah. So one, you have to basically allow your brain not to break.
Which feels hard right now.
No, it's really hard. It is really hard, right? And as so here's what's happening. As larger dimensionality starting to come into our perceived reality, we are able to access much larger scopes of vision, perception, experience of self, right? But in order to basically start to inch towards that change, you have to start opening your construct up to possibility of something other. And in order to open yourself to possibility of something other, you have to basically start to believe and identify that what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, what is my truth is false because it is designed and is being fed by the limiting belief structure that I chose here to experience. I came here to experience less than, right? By whatever measurement. It doesn't even matter what the metric is. I'm not talking about Elon Musk money, or I'm not talking about, homeless man on the street. It's not about money. Both of those individuals would have came here to experience lesser than. And then the question is then, if I came here to experience lesser than, and that is the idea. That's if you take the lesser than and make that your construct, what if I go, you know what? what does it look like for me to recognize that that is what I came here to experience and start to open myself up to something outside of it.
Right.
And that's, so I'm actually not saying right now, I'm not saying yet that you need to start walking towards something else. What you need to start doing is you need to start allowing your brain to start to believe or see your reality as a very limited expression of a very narrow construct of self-definition.
Yeah. Lesser than is a good example, because that probably relates to everyone, maybe.
No, it's everyone by default.
Yeah,
because you're on Earth.
I can see that in myself in various aspects.
No, it's right. You're again trying to sink down into the 3D. It's.
I can see how my belief that is a common thread in so many of my beliefs. I mean,
right. So in the last podcast, not last podcast, or maybe a couple of ago, we talked about when we reached that elated zone of like, heaven singing type of a thing, and everything was just known, and everything was truth, and it was just sublime, right? In that aspect, you almost do not have set of beliefs.
Right. You're almost just like in like
you're
an observer
wholeness, but you're experiencing
state.
Wholeness in all of your observations. Your experience with the world is, I am whole. This is complete wholeness. And I'm seeing it through the filter of wholeness. Almost like whenever you touched on that incredible feeling of God or source or universal consciousness or just that elated love, you almost had, if you want to say it, something else put on over your lenses or something else removed from your lenses, whatever you want to call it. You had an unlimited resource of potentiality available in front of you. And so therefore the lens with which you were seeing the world was the potentiality of no limit. There was no limit. There was no belief structure. There was no construct that you are viewing the world from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, yes, that was my experience.
Right. So
I view it as like the lenses have been removed.
Sure.
Like normal day to day has a lens on it, and that lens is loading up a bunch of crap on top of the real truth, which was visible once those were removed.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't, at this point, I want to differentiate. It's not even a bunch of crap. It is just your personal narrative that you choose to experience on Earth. And is it really crap? It is your choice. It is hard for us to admit that it is our choice, and it's easier to call it crap, but it is our choice. We might not understand at any one moment why we're still making that choice, right? But it is still our choice. Right? There's something in that narrative that keeps us hooked in to where this is still continues to be our experience.
Right.
And so in order to marry it, in order to integrate it, you have to recognize that this is the narrative that I'm choosing to propagate and experience. And what is it within me that has that narrative locked? Right. But what is within you that has that narrative locked is a very visceral experience into that narrative that came in with the definition of your soul incarnating into this form, and then drew in the frequency of the belief system around that narrative. That's what it is, right?
Right.
So if you start looking at it, from that raised standpoint of, if I'm here as a higher dimensional soul experiencing Earth, then chances are, if you have been experiencing Earth in a three-dimensional form, you have been experiencing a limited, narrow band version of potentiality and of wholeness, right? And so that's what I'm saying is starting to step back and say, what if this limited nature, right, is a false perception of wholeness, right? What if behind this limited nature of self is actually unlimited potentiality, unlimited everything,
right?
And but you have to do that in order to do that, you have to start by admitting to yourself that you are choosing a very narrow set of experiences and beliefs based on your previous decision into this form.
Right.
To some extent, some other people might use words. You're going outside of your karmic contract, right? If you believe that you came here karmically needing to set specific goals or specific experiences into life,
Mhm.
you're starting to see the contract. You're starting to recognize what the contract is, and you're starting to recognize these beliefs and these narratives or these structures, right? Like, oh, I'm unloved, or I'm not wanted, or I'm unsafe, whatever those are. And you have to start to see them as these, like, oh yeah, these are the beliefs and structures that form my reality.
Right. And then part of that contract is I believe is the clause that once you recognize it's a contract and you decide that you make the spiritual decision, thank you, but I've completed that. It's time for me to move on. You get to move on from that experience to some
Yeah,
degree.
yeah, but you can't
I mean,
you can't just recognize, oh, look, I'm drowning in
yeah,
unsafety.
it's
I'm
not
done with it.
just
Let me move
yeah,
on.
it isn't.
No, you have to complete that cycle, right?
Yes,
You have
right.
to
Release it.
complete, release, acknowledge, integrate that cycle in. You
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
integrate that whole definition / belief system into this form.
Right. It isn't like on The Office where Michael Scott's like, I declare bankruptcy. He just says it out loud and declares it and pretends that it's done.
Yeah, it's
It's
like that.
not like that.
Yeah, you have to work through that karmic cycle.
Yeah.
And and that's difficult. That's work. So I'm not saying that this belief structure that everything is wrong and I'm going and hightailing on out of here. I'm not saying that from the karmic standpoint of ego trying to escape and then move on. Do you know? That is not what this is. There's still this completion of all of these cycles. And so what I'm seeing right now is that right now, I don't know if it is for me, maybe that's a question that I can ask you here, is that I'm seeing there's this, so everything kind of comes in these arcs from these structures, the belief structure that functions within you arcs itself into option of release. It's almost like, excuse me, like a half circle arc.
Yeah.
Less than a half circle.
It's like that. It's tied to its completion point.
Well, no, it has a potentiality for completion, but it travels in an arc.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm experiencing potentiality of an arc. And at the end of that arc of that potentiality, basically, you have a choice of completing this karmic cycle or continuing into another arc, another reiteration of its interpretation. And that's what I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that.
On your personally, or just seeing me struggle?
Personally.
Okay.
It feels like I don't know. There's I don't know if I can come up with an example. It just feels like there's so many things in my life that are an arc is a great way to word it. I haven't thought about that, but there's in progress, and it feels like they're at completion or nearing completion, and then it's like you get the option to, well, do I want to do this again, or do I go, well, okay, that was fun, that was a thing, thank you, I have gotten what I need to out of that. I can move on.
Yeah, when you come, so you have an option to complete this, let's say, karmic cycle or this belief structure, right? That comes into your definitional set of forms on the end of the arc. And like I am at the end of the arc, and so you're at the end of the arc. I bet we're not the only people who are at the end of the arc. It feels like
it's multiple arcs for multiple.
Yes, there are a lot
topics.
of arcs. Yeah, there are a lot of arcs all the time, but I'm experiencing one of the bigger arcs right now, like something that, or at least something that I'm able to foresee and see through right now.
Yeah.
And then basically at that point is when you're at that precipice of that arc, you can choose, and now I'm seeing kind of through, over 40 years of my behavior, where each time this possibility for an arc came through, I reiterated the same behaviors forward, and I started the new version of that arc. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's basically what happens. If the same, and this, I'm giving an example. If you keep on having the same experience, right? Guru Jagat always says that. Like if you keep on having the same experience, it is because you keep on reliving that same arc. So if you meet a new person, you have an experience with them that is the repeat of that experience and that experience and that experience, is because you keep on getting new arc opportunities.
I guess I have a personal arc example that I could give. Like, there have been several times over my life, and then even recently, where like uh, I've gotten like, we could euphemize it and say concerned about financial situations, right? And I didn't realize it until recently that I had this, this a belief associated with it. That, oh, we don't have enough money, there isn't enough, whatever. And it was only on the most recent completion of that arc that I kind of did realize that, oh, this is, you could call it a belief, you could call it a story, a narrative, or whatever, that I have been playing out over and over throughout my life. And you know, at the times when there's plenty of money, it just doesn't happen to be. It's not that the arc is complete; it's that the arc is kind of on pause until such a time that we get to write it out to where it
Well, no,
it triggers again.
at the top of the, at the top, whenever you're arcing at the top of the arc, you're not necessarily feeling distress.
Right. So
It's the buildup, right? The buildup, and then
right. So it's not the entire ride of the arc isn't necessarily a positive or negative experience. It may go back and forth, but it all came to a head, and I was kind of freaking out, unjustifiably so. But that doesn't change how things feel. But yeah, no, I there was a lot of processing and releasing on that. And
do you feel like you completed the arc and it's not going to start over? Because just recognizing it does not make it go away. I want to.
I know that recognizing it doesn't make it go away.
Yeah,
and I think so. I mean, we'll see.
I think basically recognizing it and then integrating it.
Yeah, that's the right.
Post the recognition, if you have the willpower and the awareness to continue to force yourself to recognize it forward, right? Like see the triggers. Basically, what we're talking about is seeing through the triggers.
Yeah.
Of these arcs. It's the how quick will you see the trigger that basically defines how this arc progresses, how quickly it progresses, right? And how many more arcs are you going to be having? How quickly you see the trigger. What do you do about the trigger, right? Do you dive into the same experience and basically start over? Or do you try to change the circuitry? Do you try to change your behaviors around it?
Right.
And basically calm the nervous system to where you see through the trigger, you see through your childhood trauma, you see through your personal narrative.
The belief.
The belief, right? And then allow the arc to be, this particular arc to be completed on that end.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying the next one will not come, but then how quickly do you allow that arc to be completed on that end?
Right. Yes. I mean,
so you will need, I think in order for this karmic cycle to end, what will need to happen is you will need to have multitude of these, oh, look, I'm triggered again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, here's exactly where this is going. This is the exact spot in my childhood trauma where this is going. Let me calm my nervous system down and not proceed down the same path as I have been.
And so instead of a multi-week, multi-month, multi-year arc, you could turn it into a couple-minute arc.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah.
But
and then eventually, maybe there is no arc, or it's a couple seconds. Oh, look at that. Okay, well.
What happens is the reason why the arcs exist, the reason why these arcs come in is because your system has resistance to this information, to this belief or this belief of this experience.
Right.
So it comes in knowing that it needs to hit resistance. It needs to hit some sort of poking point, right? And when it hits the resistance, and then I guess the test is, or the personal challenge, or your soul's job here is to have the visceral experience of what do I do when I get hit with personal resistance. The system wants to push, right? What do I do with it? And so the arcs are basically opportunities to integrate that experience and see it for what it is, and then calm the nervous system down.
Right.
Or just continue on the same looping cycle of the arc.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good way to look at it. You haven't mentioned this arc thing before, but that's.
No, I was trying to mention to you. Remember when we were sitting at lunch? I was saying that I was showing the everything comes into these arcs.
I don't remember you saying
And
arc.
it's not even, it's what's interesting is it's not a complete rainbow. It's not 180. It is like 20 degrees off the ground and like another 20 degrees off the ground. So it's whatever that
140?
one, sure, like 140 degree
Hmm.
sweep, which is I don't know why, like I get
Yeah.
this information. I don't know why it matters. For all I know, it's 144, which is like one of those numbers in the universe that means something.
12 times 12?
Yeah.
12 times 12?
Yeah. So for all I know, that is the exact number, but I'm roughly gauging about 20 degrees. I'm sure through sacred geometry, it is actually related to something. I'm just not the sacred geometry person. I know how things work and what allow to hold structure, and I can tell you what structure it is, but I would not,
We can get Robert Edward Grant on that.
Yeah. Through the math sequencing, I cannot explain to you why.
Yeah.
Why it's determined that way. Yeah, like it's interesting because I can feel it energetically. I can feel it like emotionally why it's that way. But mathematically, I don't know why it's that way.
Mm.
Yeah, but so these arcs or these loops, right, allow us opportunities. So, we talked about it all the other ways of like seeing through the triggers, or seeing through the fear, or seeing through the pain, or seeing where you're going. But this is another way to look at it, is look at them as these karmic cyclical arcs that just come in, and basically you're constantly repeating this particular one or that particular one. And all of them are basically these sections of beliefs originating from the limiting definitional structure that you decide to take on as a form of Elliot, right?
Yeah.
Because if another form of Elliot decided to take on where you are, I don't know.
Heroin addict?
What?
Heroin addict?
I was going to say something positive,
Oh,
but
sure.
it's interesting that you went into negative.
I thought we could do positive instead.
Yeah, whatever, right? You can imagine there's a version of you that has a different set of belief structures, that has completely different experience, right? And it's interesting. If you have one come in, right? And if one comes in, the two Elliots are having the same experience because you're still deriving off that one. But the second one offshoots, and this Elliot chooses this is belief, but this Elliot chooses this is belief, then you are a different person.
Yeah.
You're having a vastly different experience of self. Just in that definitional building block of structure.
This starts to hurt the head too, but I kind of subscribe to that, infinite universes theory, where there is an Elliot who, does this, and then there is an Elliot who does that, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And like saying that, like how would this work? I don't know, but this feels true to me, that you kind of get to, what was that movie? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
Mm-hmm.
Almost like that. You kind of get to, you can kind of hop to the one that you want. Life really is a choose your own adventure thing.
Yeah.
And not just like, oh, well, I'm going to choose to drive this way, or I'm going to choose to drive that way, but like I'm going to choose to just bloop into this alternate universe where everything is the same, except I can do this, or I don't do that, whatever it is.
But in order to do that, you first have to admit that everything you believe is wrong, because you're drawing on the limited construct of right now. You have to allow your mind to have that seed and believe it, and basically allow, not to kill the self, but to recognize the self is wrong because it is perceiving everything from the limited construct of self-belief.
Yeah.
That you yourself designed and grabbed onto,
right.
and been holding onto the entire life.
Right.
So it hurts the brain. I know it hurts the brain,
yeah.
especially if you're in a lower vibratory state. To go that high up, is like almost impossible.
Right, because it's like I want my nature is to want to figure out how that would work, what that means, what that looks like. How does physics work in this construct, and it is, there is a resistance to just surrendering to. But I don't have. This is not something I have to understand in a very 3D physical sense.
Yeah, but this is something that we've been struggling with, because remember what I said. the second you start to introduce this concept into your mind and you start to hit that frequency, it is extremely threatening to the personal being of survival.
Right. It is.
And the survival instincts will bulge the shit out of this thing. I mean, you will just push back and you will go into some sort of crazy mode of unsafe.
Right.
Because this is the ultimate surrender of control.
The first time you told it to me, there was a very visceral reaction to, like, you said, all your beliefs are wrong. And I'm like, well, maybe some of them are wrong. And maybe, maybe I'm wrong about this or whatever. I tried to soften it into something more acceptable. I caught myself doing it over and over and over. And I had to catch myself and go, wait, no, don't try to soften it. Just be with the whole, all your beliefs are wrong. It was because it feels it's unsafe. It's very,
it's extremely unsafe. And so to be trying to introduce this concept into my psyche right now and seeing how the psyche deals with it.
Mm-hmm.
I told you this, like the second the psyche starts to deal with it, it's going crazy trying to find any kind of anchor into the opposite end of it, which is some sort of belief of unsafety that will have me locked down and go the opposite direction of this threat.
Right.
Like my body is actually fighting this concept,
right,
by introducing all kinds of false narrative that I have been living on and on all of these arcs.
Yeah.
And bringing them in and go, look, here's why that's not right. And here's another reason why that's not right. And here's another reason why that's right.
Exactly.
I actually feel my subconscious self fighting this idea, which is
it's bonkers. But it's really interesting to watch it because then you realize, oh, that's its own belief too.
It's unsafety.
Yeah, but it's unsafe.
The reason why beliefs exist is because they're there as our little safety parameters, right?
Right, but it's unsafe. But there's the belief that it is unsafe. It's like this meta belief on top of these beliefs.
So basically what it does is, in order to believe that, you have to start to relinquish the idea that you have any control over anything.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to say, oh shit, not only am I wrong, I am not in control of anything at all. And in fact, any control that I perceive is not there. And anything that I see with my visual eyes cannot be trusted because it is completely a construct of my limiting belief that I am trying to identify within myself. The second you go and touch on that, and the reason why brain hurts so much, is the ultimate test of unsafety.
Right.
It's ultimate, like there's no control. I actually have no clue of what the heck is happening. The universe is not what I think it is.
Right.
And you have to surrender into that. And with me, that is quite literally the pinnacle of survival.
Yeah. To me, like understanding it is my form of control. Because if I can understand it, then does it give me direct control over it? I mean, not necessarily in the sense that one normally understands the word control, but it makes me feel like I have some control in some messed up way. So understanding things has always been my go-to throughout my whole life. I want to know this. I want to understand this. I want to, have knowledge about this.
Yeah,
which is totally just to make me feel safe, because that gives me this illusion of control and safety.
Yes. Right. If we
I'm going to just pick it and say, oh, there's the asteroid coming. It's like, well, if I can learn everything I can about the asteroid, maybe that would make me feel better about it in a way.
In the last podcast, right? The reason why this is building on that is we talked about the second your nervous system goes into that jitteriness of a discomfort, you have to do something to calm the nervous system down. And everything we have been doing thus far to calm the nervous system down is provide structure or belief or control or perception thereof or understanding or soothing to calm the nervous system.
Right. But
that is what if our belief system is limited, that is something within our control and grasp.
But that, back to the arc, all that does is just bounce that arc to the next one. That doesn't complete the arc. That starts up a new arc.
That is how we deal with overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
If I tell your brain, guess what? Your perception of reality is completely wrong and there's no control. You're just basically at all times are open to unlimited universal potentials of good and bad, right? I would say that to you, right? Your system will not accept that because that is quite literally life-threatening to your existence. And I want to point out, because your existence came here to only exist in this construct.
What's interesting is that when you say that, open to all potentials, good and bad, maybe most people's natural response is to go, good and bad, and really focus on the bad potential.
Yeah.
Which is, like a lot
that's
of
the threat.
The threat, because it's not how good can it get, it's how bad can it get.
Yeah, well, because we came here to experience the limited notions of reality, and that's where the brain falls apart.
Right.
Is you don't want to admit to yourself that you came here to experience a very narrow band of lesser than, right? Because the second you admit to yourself, oh, I came here to experience less, you'll be like, wait, no, I'm constantly making that choice. I'm making that choice on daily millisecond by millisecond basis to experience lesser than.
Right.
And then if I say that to you, you'll be like, that's crazy.
Do you want to experience less than?
Yeah.
No.
Everybody would say no.
Everybody would say no.
But the whole point of the belief system is to cause you to experience less than.
Right.
So by default, then you're like, wait, but I'm not at the mercy of anything other than my own personal belief structure that drives the lesser than narrative.
Right. And that all that does is bring more examples of less than into your life, both directly and, I will say, indirectly, although it also all directly. It's directly in that, you don't believe you can get a raise, so you never even try. And maybe I will say indirectly in that, I don't even know. The universe will bring you things that will reinforce that belief.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, to be open to the unlimited, your mind is very eager to say, oh yeah, to unlimited good. But then at the same time, what your system says, it creates this pressure within you. Think about this. What the system is doing is say, you have to be open to the universal unlimited, right? And your mind automatically goes, yeah, of abundance, but not
definitely
bad.
not the bad.
The bad.
Don't want that.
And that right there is the resistance structure that keeps you actually completely away from any universal abundance, because you believe that there's bad. Because the bad is your belief system to experience lesser than.
Yeah.
And so within itself, like, think about this, it is buried to where you have tension to me saying, this will, everything you believe is wrong because it is based on a limited structure. And what is beyond this is the unlimited potential of the unknown. And it's very easy to go, oh, unknown of the good. But let's be honest, the little mind in the back goes, but there's the bad.
Yeah.
And then you shut that idea off. The brain hurts. You quite literally go into some sort of spasm, and you go into the glazed look of la, 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 la. And you go, well, that's just nonsense.
I mean, that's a very well documented psychological thing with humans, is that this loss aversion is so much more powerful than even the potential of gaining more. And so it's like, okay, here's, we'll flip a coin. If you win, I'll give you $5. If you lose, if it's heads, I'll give you $5. If it's tails, I'll take $5. And it's like, on average, that's just a wash. But there's like this aversion to it because I don't want to lose $5. And even if it's like, if you win, I'll give you 10, and if you lose, I'll take 5. It's like, that is a great game to play if you can get that, right? If only you could get those odds. But there's still this losing 5 hurts much more than how good winning 5 or winning 10 is in general to most humans, which is really messed up. But that just goes to show that we have all collectively agreed that this is our belief, that we're all going to lose stuff, and it sucks to lose stuff, and this lesser than mentality, this lesser than belief is so ingrained in human psyche. Is it, I think I've read that there's some sort of evolutionary, like, oh, well, because, if you lose something, it's, you're more likely to die off, or the tribe is going to die. I don't know, maybe, but regardless of where it came from, it's there. It's incredibly prominent and very hard to rationalize out. Even if, you can go, well, statistically, this makes sense, so I'll just do it. You're not actually, that's just kind of like suppressing the feeling of it. It's like, okay, well, I can force it into my prefrontal cortex, and I know, well, I'm going to lose a couple times, but on average, I'm going to win. So I can pretend that I'm not going to feel it, and then just, play this game a few times and just walk away with what will probably be my winnings. Okay. But that's not completing the arc. That's band-aiding over the arc temporarily and logicking it out. That's a different thing than what we're talking about. If the arc
has an influx of you reacting to that jitteriness, right? That like influx of the nervous system going to some sort of friction, and you going, okay, I'll look this way because I can win money, but blah, 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 don't look that way. That right there tells you that there's stuck energy that will propagate this arc over and over and over and over. And that's the opportunity to see. If I'm saying this and you're running the other direction or already not listening to the podcast, that right there is basically, guess what? You're running away from the nonsensical idea that there's something beyond your limited scope of reality.
How many times have we been doing some online yoga class and the instructor says, I know this is uncomfortable and I know you want to back away, but just stick with it. It's like, it seems like the same thing. It's like we just want to avoid loss. We just want to avoid pain, even when, we may know it's for our own good, but we just want to, Well,
the nervous system goes into survival mode of defense.
Yeah, right. It's like, itself. You're in your warrior one and your legs burning, and it's like, you're logically, I don't think you could damage your leg. There's no muscular damage that's going to happen. You will fall over before you actually physically cause an injury to your leg, assuming you're doing it right. But there's this like, it hurts so much. I can't. It's just in there.
Yeah. Well, from the larger standpoint, that pose is poking stuck energy, emotional energy of the belief system. Right. And it actually, in this case, the belief system is not associated with the muscle pain. It's associated with discomfort. And discomfort is usually associated with unsafety, right?
Sure.
And so it just goes down to that unsafety, right?
Right.
But I want to kind of flip the perspective and go from the other side, right? When you come in here, right, and you descend dimensionality, and you pass through the veil, or like you pass down into our system, right? That has a limited concept of what reality holds, right? Like if we're not connected to the universal consciousness immediately, right? We then by default perceive lesser than concepts, right? The only way for us to perceive lesser than is to be cut off, right? As human earthly race, right? We're cut off from this unlimited nature of wholeness.
Right. But but back to like what, I've heard so many times, like if a omnipotent, omnipresent being wants to have any kind of experience at all, you have to forget that and come down to, say, here, 3D Earth.
Yeah.
So right. that's the deal.
Well, but the deal is, but I want to say the belief system is how that deal gets set into place.
Right.
That is how we come to experience limited lesser than.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say. So I want to marry those two concepts. Is when people say like, oh, if you are omnipresent being and you come here and you're infinite divine, wanting to experience limited reality, the belief system that descend into dimensionality, into structure, and then very narrow set of experience is set in through your beliefs.
Yeah.
And your beliefs are there to make you feel better about feeling lesser than. You're right. Like if you feel unsafe, then the beliefs are there. On one end, propagating that safety, and on the other end, are doing everything to offset the feeling of unsafety.
Right. Both.
right?
Fighting itself.
Because you feel fragile. You feel disoriented because you do not perceive existence, right, of wholeness.
Right.
Because you feel like this is it, right? So as long as we feel like this is it, the idea of us being infinite and omnipresent and everlasting, is not going to be threat to this form, right? This form needs to be threatened in order for you to have a limited experience. So that threat is basically being defined, right? Again, definitions coming down. It is a frequency. And then it propagates into beliefs, these little layers of beliefs.
Yeah.
But again, those layers can be seen as these little arcs where you have these opportunities to release them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, to get this topic going further is once your brain stops short circuiting and you allow yourself to even start to touch on this idea, you actually open yourself up to the multidimensional perception of reality. So that is what's on the other end. And I'm not saying you have to clear out all your karmic cycles and all of your beliefs in order to even get there. It is kind of a gradual process, one arc at a time, right? So you will gradually start to open your system up, right? You might still be working on this arc, but you clear the other arc. And so more of your pranic energy to your actual higher self, right? To your chi or your prana, what are the other words? All the esoteric teaches that basically, your kundalini force or your life force or your higher self, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You open your system up to higher vibratory states by leaving these definitions or these beliefs that cause density. As you densify by releasing these arcs, right? These karmic cycles, you start to touch on this greater understanding.
Right.
And, and you and I, if we're in a higher vibratory state, like, oh my gosh, like, one, you don't have to do anything because the entire potentiality is right there in front of you.
Right.
Two, everything is bathed in love. And you're like, oh, I don't even have to do anything. Everything is love, good and bad. Do you know what I mean?
To give that's a very 3D example, but like in the last, a few weeks, there have been many instances of us just getting free stuff. And
we've been getting free stuff a lot though, but more so than ever.
More so than ever. And this is on the heels of like me doing a lot of work to release that too.
Oh yeah. You were correlating it to that.
I mean, maybe not. I don't know, but it's just, there's like, oh, well, were you a whatever insurance company subscriber between this year and that year? Oh, well, here's $20 because class action lawsuit. Okay, I'll take it. And, we went to print out some photos yesterday and you found a coupon that cut it in half. And then they go and
because I'm a cheap ass. No, you're complaining about $14.
Sure, but let's not even say that. Arguably, that's free money, but and then they go and they print it, and you look at them, and there's this like white line across all the pictures. And the lady's like, I don't know, the machine's messed up, so she tries to print it again, and we end up with like 3 copies of everything. They all have the white line, but she ends up cutting the price in half. So it was like ended up being like $3 for like 100 prints or something.
Yeah,
that's a great deal. And there was another one that. It's just crazy. There's just all this free stuff. It's fantastic.
No, but I want to say when we open into that infinite potential, right? Because that's what I'm saying. The belief structure creates lesser than on all kinds of levels. But when we open outside of lesser than, it's impossible, right? When you say like, oh, I want to know how that is or what that is or how that works or scientifically how that flows in order to control it, right? In order not to feel threatened by it.
Right.
But at the same time, think about all the examples that we have just brought up. You cannot construct this universal flow.
Right.
There's not an imaginary way of being that you can go of how am I going to get this for free? Like,
right.
So
the best you can do is win the lottery, but then you're constricted to one thing.
Yeah.
It's,
but your limited mind, you have to understand that your limited mind can only do the best imagination possible out of this limited construct.
Right.
So you have to get out of your own way, right? Which is what manifesting is. You have to get out of your own way and go, I will allow the universe to do its bidding for me.
The best example of that, and we've talked about this before, is, there's microplastics. Oh my gosh, we're all going to die. There's microplastics in the sea. There's microplastics in the food. And now they can cross your blood-brain barrier. Oh, okay. End of the world. What are we going to do? There's nothing we can do. They're everywhere. And then someone discovered some sort of little bacteria thing that eats microplastics and I guess poops out something that biodegrades. What? Oh, okay, this is great.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is,
not that the problem is solved, but here is a solution to the problem. But who could have possibly, what are the other options? I don't know, some sort of filter, some sort of, this. I don't know.
From earthy standpoint,
But
right? We're not even able to comprehend or design.
The universe has given us some organism that just solves it. It eats it. It wants to eat microplastics, and we want the microplastics eaten. Perfect. It's perfect. Everybody wins. Who could have? Who had microplastic eating bacteria on their bingo card for 2025? Nobody, because it's not even in the realm of something that you could come up with.
Yeah, right. But again, outside of the scope of lesser than. Right? You're not in that closed off fear mindset. Somebody is not, right? And they're open to this universal potential. And through their open heart, they're like, what if I get out of my own way? What if I admit that I'm experiencing a limited construct based on 40 years of my vibratory frequency? And I'm willing to step out and allow the universe to show me what actually is.
Right. Because the universe is much better at coming up with solutions than you are.
Yeah. Incredible solutions. Like I will give this example. Like, this is silly, but it's just silly. But that's just how universally it works. This morning when I'm dropping Annabelle off at school at the carpool, right? And we're running slightly late, so I'm kind of like back towards the like one of the like the up the hill road, right? But at some point, basically what happens is all the teachers that arrive late, it's a two-way road. So one-way road. Like, so one lane going up, one lane going down. And the carpool basically locks up and basically goes up the hill and into the infinite expression of itself.
Whoever designed this was not.
Yeah, so just it was not designed for long carpooling. As teachers arrive late, right, for the most part, there's no one coming down this way, right? Mm-hmm. So they purposely lock it off to where, unless the carpool started going, no one's going this way, and which is usually the case. And so as the teachers arrive late, as this carpool line has built up, they have to drive in the passing on lane in order to get into the parking.
Left oncoming traffic lane.
Yeah, but thankfully, there's no oncoming traffic unless it is after the 7:15 time frame, and then the carpool has started going, right? So everybody just sits there for the first 10 to 15 minutes if you get there early.
Yeah.
And the teachers are able to just go jump around.
Right.
And today was just another one of those days. That's always the case. And in this case, we're actually slightly more back than we used to be. And the guy in front of me, this is another thing that will happen. Maybe it's a side note to remind me to bring in is how much you will be able to read energetic structures, right? So this is what this is doing. When you open up to the concept of side of lesser than, this is one of the things that comes in. This is just an example. He's partially judgment here. He's angry and whatever, but he's in here and he obviously doesn't want to be there. And so he decides to leave his car parked there and walk his daughter in manually up the hill.
He's in the line?
He's in the line.
He leaves his car in the middle of the line?
He leaves his car in the middle of the line and then leaves with his daughter and walks up the hill just to drop her off, right? Now, this is after that turn, right? So this is...
After the 1-2-1-2 turn? Going...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So like I'm the last car there. I'm actually second to the last car and he's the car in front of me. So he's like third car in, right? And he leaves and he drives this big truck. And the way he pulled in was all aggressive. He almost like cut me off. So, just impatient and a lot of turmoil energy, right?
Because you're right on the verge of being late and you have to sign him in, or?
No, we're not late. Oh. This is 7:11.
Oh, okay.
So he just wants to leave and he doesn't want to leave until he doesn't want to sit there until the carpool goes through, because the carpool doesn't start moving until 7:15. So he's impatient and he just wants to go.
But where he is, he's still going to have to go around the loop.
Yes, except that's not what he decides to do.
Oh.
So then he decides that he's gonna, because he pulled in angrily, and I'm like, okay, so there's already a trigger there, and so I stay back. I'm like, okay, intuitively, I already know that something's happening. So he gets out of the car, and he's trying to put on the calm face, but obviously, again, when you go outside of lesser than, all kinds of other information opens up to you. And so at this point, I know that this man is on the brink of some sort of flip out. And I just, not only did I keep my car back, I'm just aware, right? And the universe is already feeding me higher knowledge.
Yeah.
And so he walks up, and then Annabelle happens to know this particular girl. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe give her extra love because, family's not doing well. And so then he aggressively pulls out, drives up, 4 or 5 cars up, turns around right there at the intersection. So I know for listeners.
Would that have been a multi-point turn?
Yeah, a multiple point turn.
Why didn't he just turn into the teacher lot?
In the meantime, there's a car coming at him, and he's blocking it. And so the teacher can't turn in, right? Now, but obviously the teacher is in the wrong lane. So, but that's just what happens, period, right?
Yeah.
That's just how the teachers can get into the lot.
The carpool isn't moving, so that left lane is supposed to be open.
Yeah.
Always is every day.
And then as the teachers arrive, close to 7:15, that's just always what happens.
Yeah.
And so now he's over there angrily 3-pointing his way back and forth in the ginormous truck, one of those short man syndrome trucks. I know I'm judging, but he's a very tiny man in a very large truck. Lift kit, all the great stuff. And so it's then coming on, and then thankfully they don't wreck. She's cautious because she knows she's in the wrong lane, and then he's doing his little 3-point thing in the wrong place, and he ends up driving through, right? But the energy, this is what's interesting. The energy of this whole thing, of his energy, is not kosher,
right?
And so at this point, and this is where it gets really interesting. There's a huge empty spot between me and where he used to be parked.
Yeah.
And I'm being guided just intuitively, not pull forward.
Don't fill that spot.
Do not fill that spot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I can feel the energy behind me of everyone getting angsty of wanting me to pull forward. So I'm already
because then you're one car closer. It's
it's all really weird, but
which makes no sense because you're going to get there at exactly the same time, whether you're still back here or still up here.
Yeah, but I'm probably, because I was already away from him intuitively, not eating up that space.
Right.
I'm probably a car and a half available space.
Sure. A monster truck and a half.
Sure. Right. So at this point, think about how much intuitively is happening.
Sure.
That I'm completely, to some extent, oblivious on by obviously tuning in something much greater without even understanding. So at this point, one, I'm actively being guided not to fill in the spot, which I don't. I'm feeling everybody else's anxious energy behind me, trying to push me forward mentally.
Sure.
But I feel his leftover field.
Yeah, don't want to be in it.
Leftover. No, I'm just being guided. Do not fill the spot.
Gotcha.
Do not fill the leftover spot. And so I sit there, and I'm like, oh, okay, we still have another. So he left at 11. He came back at 12. So we still have another 3 minutes before this whole thing starts moving. And so I sit there, I don't know, maybe another minute or so, not filling in that spot. And out of nowhere comes another teacher that is running even later. And out of nowhere comes a car going just leaving early. And,
they're both going too fast?
They're still going slowly. They're going cautiously. But if I did not move, or if I did move and fill up that spot, this would have been either a wreck or most definitely somebody's backing out backwards for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so that car, the teacher who was running late, literally can just pull into this area in front of me, let this car pass by.
The truck or the other car?
No, he left. And this is a completely different car that is coming out now.
Okay. Gotcha.
Another instance, right? And so now, nothing bad would have happened, I don't think, right? But intuitively, I was literally guided not to move into that spot, not to feel that energy, because the universe was basically letting me know somebody else will come and they will need to pull right there in front of you because this is going to be a traffic, disaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, is it useful in the long run? Like, is this a world-saving type of event? It's not, microplastic eating bacteria, but this is just a simple way that when you open up beyond the concept of you're limited, right? This information just comes at you. And this is a very practical, way the universe just kind of feeds you information.
Wow.
Is it useless? Maybe. I guess maybe in the long run, could that car have backed out and figured a way to back away and not get hit? And could the other car back away and not get hit? Yes, but none of that was necessary. And what I want to say is the universe basically created a complete scenario where everyone was flowing flawlessly, right? So what this did not create was any kind of conflict or backup or extra tension or extra work. The universe was...
It left this buffer, a literal buffer zone for
flow.
Yeah.
It literally allowed flow to happen naturally as opposed to creating barriers or restricted movement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Interesting.
So all of this on my end, I will take credit for this, intuitively allowed flow. It just simply allowed flow. I didn't have to do anything other than listen to something that was beyond my concept of limited scope of three-dimensional interpretation. And so that's what happens when you allow your being to admit to the idea that my perception is limited. I'm functioning in lesser than, and what I believe is wrong, right? In that case, I could have given into the pressure of quite literally probably 30 different people wanting me to move forward a spot and a half because somehow it mattered.
Right.
I could have given in and overrode the universe that was somehow guiding me not to fill that spot, right? Besides the judgment and all that, that's still something I need to work on in my arcing. Right. But in that case, I read him as a human being and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not doing anything at all. Like to begin with, I'm like, I need to keep my distance. And, and that initial distance allowed, and then also me not feeling that distance allowed this whole other thing, this whole other person just to pull in so this other car could pass.
Right.
So it's just an example of how universe will deliver things outside of the scope of your limited construct. And you will get this knowledge that will allow other things to flow.
Right.
Not just you, not just your personal experience, but even for everyone around you. Like it exponentially multiplies itself to where everyone around me is then functioning in more flow.
Right. Because, normally the belief is, if someone pulls out of the line, you fill that spot. That's just the belief that everyone would always have.
But why?
And then the belief is that the person up there needs to do it too, right? Because then I'm a car closer. I mean, it doesn't actually change anything.
But we're approaching the whole thing from lesser than.
Yeah.
Right? In that case, as simple as, we want to be as close as possible to the drop-off spot when 7:15 hits. That's a lesser than.
Right.
Like I need to be there in order to drop off early so that 30-second or a minute difference would change something.
Right.
Right. That's lesser than about something that is trivial.
But in actual reality, it doesn't change the order of the cars getting there. And as soon as you do move up, they will flow. So it doesn't actually change the amount when anybody in that line, you or anybody behind you, will get there.
No, but I felt that pressure from everybody else to fill that spot.
I felt pressure like that too. Yeah, I know exactly.
But it's because the construct is being fed from lesser than. Mm-hmm. Somehow this matters towards my safety. Because time is tied into safety.
Everybody there is dropping their kid off and then has to get to work.
Yes, but it's guess what? It's safety, right? It's somehow unsafe. It's somehow, if I shave 30 seconds here or there, then I will hit less rush hour traffic later when I'm driving to downtown.
Sure.
And when I hit in that, and then I get into work earlier, and then the boss won't be mad, right? Or like, oh, I'll have extra time to sit around and get a cup of coffee. Do you know what I mean? There's all of these belief structures that we have of why we need to get somewhere earlier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, but if you fall into the flow of everybody else's construct, including your own, that scenario that happened wouldn't have not happened, right? I would have, one, got there as quick as possible. Two, I would have just scooched on over. There would have been either one, an accident, or best case, just a lot of backwards backing up by very unprofessional drivers. And who knows what that would have led to.
Right.
Honestly, I do think it avoided something bigger. Because if this car started to back out, that would have been much more difficult.
Right. Because obviously the teacher's got to back out, because where's the other guy going to go?
All the way out.
All the way out. And then make a turn and stuff. And
yeah. Right. And that's traffic. Like,
Right.
There's a lot of traffic there. At the same time, sometimes I pull out there, and then the way I pull out and I turn to the left, that lane is being blocked by the turning people.
It's hard to see.
There were multiple times where the universe said, slow down, there's a car coming.
Yeah. Driving is really weird. And that's, when Aiden started driving, it's like, how do you teach this, like, intuitive seeing things that are about to happen? And, some of that is just, well, I've been driving for 30 years and, I've got 30 years of experience doing it or whatever. But
I mean, it's kind of like pattern recognition, but it's always through lesser than.
Right. Yes, it is. It's like, oh, look, there's,
I mean, that's how AI, Tesla AI gets trained on pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Like, enough data about this particular thing.
Yeah. Oh, this
is a pattern.
This truck is weaving around and just cross the lane a couple times. Get around them quick. There have been so many things, so many times when, like, especially when he was just learning to drive, and he's driving and I'm in the passenger seat, and I'm like, okay, look, it's not that it is going to happen, but there is a chance that something's going to happen because of X, Y, and Z. Just be aware of this, just be aware of that. And there's a whole lot of lesser than fear when your kid starts driving. That's like one of the most challenging things that a parent can do is, my kid's driving. I believe that they're a terrible driver. I believe everybody else is a terrible driver. Everybody's drunk on the road. Even if my kid's driving perfect, which he's not, everyone's going to crash into him and come across the lane driving 100 miles. There's is he, him making it there or making it back is just not even a possibility. Everything's just going to always go wrong.
Yeah. I will admit I did not handle that well.
It's,
and I still can't handle that.
And, we started driving at 16 and, and then there's, he's driving with all these other 16-year-olds. And it's just, it's very difficult to accept.
No, with me, it just comes down to control, right?
Well, yeah.
He behaves differently than I feel comfortable, and his behavior feels to me unsafe.
Right.
It just triggers my safety.
It's the same thing as, the Tesla autopilot. It doesn't drive how I drive. Therefore, it's out of control and unsafe.
Yeah.
Now, it may be, and I believe it actually is, that statistically, Tesla autopilot is safer than human drivers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what the statistics say. I will give it the benefit of the doubt and say that is probably true. That said, the way it drives is not how I drive. And so when it does something that is contrary to what I would do, it's like, what the heck's going on with this? This is this piece of crap. It doesn't know how to drive. It
just feels unsafe.
It feels unsafe.
You're out of control and it feels unsafe.
Right.
But that is the same thing as me telling you your belief system is wrong. The universe has unlimited potential available to you. And the only reason you're not experiencing it is because you're locking that system down by your wrong definitions.
Right.
And that's the same way threatening and same way feels out of control as your 17-year-old driving and behaving differently than you are.
Right. Is it safe? Is it unsafe? It almost becomes irrelevant. It feels unsafe. And so
it's threatening.
So it's threatening. And so, the natural response is we want to mitigate that somehow by doing something or not accepting it or whatever.
Yeah. One of the examples, so I just started the book, but one of the example Thomas Campbell gives that I want to bring in that is relevant of how this experience starts to look, right? And in my dreams, I've had this given to me that this is what's coming. When you start to open to a higher frequency of your universal perception, right? And you go outside of the construct of this limiting belief, right? Like all of the ghostly stories and all of the unexplained stories that we had in that other podcast, right? Basically talks about you hitting that. So anytime you're interacting with something that is unexplainable in this realm, or for example, in this case, just me knowing not to pull into that spot in order for, to avoid an accident. You're touching on the unlimited scope of potential that is actually your truth, right? The universe just, through synchronicity, through just the way it is acting, aligning everything for you for the best good of you and everyone around you, right? And so when you start to function that way, your vision quite literally changes of what you see. And the reason why he was able to open up into this perspective is because as a scientist, he basically said to himself, when I started to go into, what is it that they were doing? It's OB, but
remote viewing.
What?
Remote viewing.
Remote viewing, but it's basically out of body experiences. And he started to prove to himself that he's wrong in his three-dimensional perception of reality, because what he was experiencing in the OB state was unexplainable. He was okay with unexplainable being his truth. And so what I want to say is that difference in spending more time allowing your body to believe in the frequency of unlimited potential and believe in the unexplainable being my truth, even though it's unsafe, right? In my case or your case, actually allowed his veil to be lifted into his everyday three-dimensional perception, became a crossover. Now, I have not read his book completely, but it became a crossover of actually seeing this unlimited scope of potential in the three-dimensional, what we would perceive a limited scope of reality.
Right.
Does that make sense? So how you do that is when you have these arcs and you release these arcs from looping over and over and over, and you release this belief structure of unsafety, let's say in my case, and you go into, here's an unsafety. I will soothe my system down and I will surrender into the universe and I will integrate this another portion of myself. You open up to higher and higher and higher frequencies. And then you go, guess what? My perception is wrong because there are still of these arcs that I have not addressed and I have not completed. Therefore, my perception is still wrong. What I'm seeing is still limited by the belief structure that I'm still trying to integrate, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be okay with that. And enough time of that, doing that and doing that and doing that, the repetitive cycle, in his case, quite literally merged the three-dimensionality and the out-of-body experience that is the fourth and fifth dimensionality.
Yeah.
And so that is how that works.
Right. I mean, I find it extra interesting for someone who was because he was a proper scientist, wasn't he? Physicist, yeah. Hard, him and Marcel Vogel. It's like they had something that proved to them that this reality is more nuanced, let's say, than 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
There's more to it than
they allow the reality to be lucid. Right. That's what it is.
Which is different from what seems like there's almost this resistance in science, and especially in like archaeology or history or something, but let's not go there yet. This data doesn't match my worldview. It doesn't match the current theory. It doesn't match it. So we're gonna almost ignore that data or excuse that data. Well, maybe the study was wrong. Maybe the experiment was faulty. Whatever. And maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But there's this resistance to allowing your experience, whether that's through the data, whether that's through your own personal experience, to change your worldview. Why? Because it becomes unsafe. It's unsafe. Like, that means everything I know is I have to throw it out the window. If all of a sudden I see plates flying off the wall and the lights shaking and stuff. Everything I know is wrong. Now there are magical forces and there's ghosts and the laws of physics no longer apply. And oh my God, what does that mean? My whole world crumbles.
Yes.
But if I can go, well, maybe that's not what I saw. Maybe it's all a hoax. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And I can stay nice and comfy and go, okay, physics still works. Ooh, okay, that's good. No, we don't go there.
Yeah.
Right. Which, I think is a lot of the resistance to like Graham Hancock's theories on like very prehistoric civilizations. It's like, if we admit, oh, well, there was a very advanced civilization 10, 15, 20,000 years ago, then we have to throw out all the history books. What a shame that would be. We have to throw them all out and we have to rewrite, oh my gosh, there was an advanced civilization and then civilization went down and hit some sort of nadir and bottomed out. And now we've been crawling out of that hole ever since.
Yeah.
It's this, oh no, civilization has gone from primitive and it only goes up and it's only gone up ever since the beginning of time. And we are now at the pinnacle of it. And it's never kind of gone woo, up and down.
Ancient civilizations, in his case, and this is what the truth is, would have to have us submit to some quite interesting interpretation of physics that we currently do not believe in.
Right.
And so then if you open to ancient civilization, this is why people are pushing against them so much. You also have to open to some unaccepted views of physics.
Right. Because of the ancient texts, the ancient carvings, the ancient myths all say things like, oh yeah, Viracocha came down and he magically levitated these stones and melted them into place.
With the power of the sun.
With the power of the sun.
Yep.
Which...
We don't want to accept that as truth because that's threatening. Because one, it's threatening because who in the fuck is this Viracocha melting rock?
Right.
And two is, wait, if there's something out there that is more advanced and stronger than us, then by default, we are the weaker kind and that's unsafe.
Right.
So, but nobody is going ... This is why I'm rejecting aliens and this is why I'm rejecting ancient civilization. This is why I'm rejecting using the power of the sun to melt something.
Right.
Or, free energy from Tesla's standpoint, or hovercrafts, right? Or plasma beams.
Right. And I don't know how,
I literally said beams.
Like, no quote, nobody believes in those things, right? That's just crazy stuff to believe in, Viracocha and whatever. But, it is, for the most part, acceptable to believe that there was a dude named Jesus about 2,000 years ago, and he literally turned water into wine, and he literally walked on water, and he literally died and literally came back from the dead, and he, literally fed, a whole bunch of people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and
infinite abundance of universe.
Right. So he literally broke the laws of physics, but it's culturally acceptable to accept that. But then again, I don't know how literally that is accepted.
No.
Or is it just, that might be excused of God. That's God magic. So that still doesn't break physics. I can still be comfy in my physics land.
I think most of the people who believe in Jesus actually walk around excusing those things as metaphorical stories.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Because in all truth, the whole point of the Bible, even without its corruptive ways of control, right? If you actually take Jesus, this is perfect, because if you take Jesus at its literal form, which we're meant to take Jesus at its literal form, this is a human being who can defy the laws of physics and feed thousands of people, right, who are gathered by the river or whatever, where they were sitting over there, and multiplies out fish and bread out of infinite potential of universe. That is quite literally what that is, right? He's beyond the limited belief of construct, and he believes in the universe providing infinite potential, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what he is. He's actually not in the three-dimensional consciousness, and he's disseminating higher propagation of consciousness. And then therefore, that unlimited knowledge and unlimited plenty comes out of the universal potential. And he's quite literally of the universal potential and is able, through his immense amount of frequency, override everybody else's belief, right, of lesser than, and show them the example of going outside of your limited nature of construct.
Right.
That's the whole point of Jesus, is to
Right.
show this. What Thomas Campbell talks about is of recognizing that everything you believe is wrong. Jesus was the example of that.
Right.
But we don't take his stories literally. What we do is we go, oh, well, maybe there was a metaphorical way of teaching us that we need to love one another and share our fish and bread with another. And then through the sharing and this love, we will all be okay.
Right.
I think that's what, like, when the priest preaches, they take the story and metaphorically convert it into some sort of acceptable lesser than structure that we're familiar with.
Right. I'm trying to think the way that I was raised in the Church of Christ. It was like, I don't know if this was explicit or not, but it was like, those were actual for real miracles that really happened. Laws of physics were really broken, but it all ended with Jesus, and and that's it. There's no more magic after that. There was magic in the Old Testament. There's burning bushes, and there's, floods, and Noah's getting a message to build an ark, and all that stuff throughout all the history. But then it ends with Jesus, 33 AD, end of magic. No more magic since then. I don't know. Regardless of metaphor or not, the powers that be back then certainly saw all this as, whoa, this is unsafe. Jesus is unsafe for sure, because if he's teaching, love, if he's teaching, abundance, what's the function of the government anymore? What's the function of the church? What's the function of this power?
You cannot control people if they are tapping into the infinite potential of the universe.
We gotta kill him off for sure.
Yeah, that was the goal. Is the goal is to suppress the truth and to continue to keep everyone in the dark. But obviously, he did an amazing job of delivering that message, because it was such a visceral experience of such unbelievable truth inserted into this world that, despite the Bible being overwritten and then the current priests teaching false narratives and metaphorically designing these control structures and all that, we can still feel that infinite potential within us. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because his teachings are, you have this within you.
Right.
Like, quite literally, this is you. You can do the same thing as I.
Right. No, you can, hear these teachings, read these teachings, even just be in a sacred place. And that it does not necessarily mean a church.
No, most definitely not a church.
I mean, because we've been in churches that have felt great, and we've been in churches that have not felt great. Mosques tend to feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it could just be in nature. It doesn't matter. But, if you can get into the right spot, you can just feel it.
Yeah, but, to reiterate, the reason why we had the episode on the Unexplained, on all of those stories, because we are already having these experiences all through our lifetimes. Everybody has dozens of stories that they can go back to, look, I was interacting with something that was outside of the defined scope of logic. This was outside of my belief, and I cannot explain it. Well, guess why? Because at that point, you're tapping into the infinite potential. And however that expression happens to be, whether in my case this morning it was some sort of, avoidance of a traffic disaster, or being saved by the hawk, or in your case, experiencing ghosts who are attached to armoires and who are, still wanting to interact with you. You don't have to go far to reach into a narrative that lets you go into that open space of, guess what? Maybe I'm wrong, and everything that I am perceiving is false, and I need to start perceiving something else. I need to be open to start perceiving outside of lesser than. outside of my own limited scope of choice.
Yeah.
Which is difficult. Like if you're down there in the dumps, because the second you open this Pandora's box, your body will drag you to the dumps.
Right. No, it's super
I've
scary.
been fighting that. I'm actively fighting that my body does not want to go into that unsafe space.
At some level, we've all been fighting it our whole lives. Right?
Yeah, but I can actually step back and see within me.
Yeah.
I can see the internal fight. It's the scared version of self that does not feel safe. Right? Because if I go, oh, guess what? I'm opening to the universal potential of unlimited without a scale, without any scale, because there's no scale, then I have to be okay with no control. And if you're a control freak like I am, that's really, really hard.
Mm.
So
yeah, I think we're probably all control freaks to some degree.
I do too. Even those who don't define themselves as control freak, right. just rudimentary behavior of doing something. You don't see it as a control, but
right.
it's there to mitigate the unsafety of otherwise.
Right. Because, I never thought of myself as a control freak because I'm like, a control freak, they're in there micromanaging every little aspect of everything. And it's like, I don't necessarily do that. But then when I realize, oh, I control things by trying to understand them, by trying to, know how things work, I've controlled things by driving definitions, by, maybe trying to manipulate situations in other ways, manipulate people in other ways. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm a control freak after all.
I think everybody is.
Just in a...
Just not in a defined... Traditional definition.
Micromanage every aspect of my, neurotic style, right?
Yeah.
Not that, but control has always been super important to me. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah. No, it's for me, it's easier to see that control is something that I exercise in like everyday life that I can.
Yeah.
But to me, it was very obviously that it related to safety. Now did I want to admit that it was related to safety? No. So it took a very long time for me to make that full circle of like, yeah, you're just unsafe. You feel completely unsafe, and control is your perceived way that you have your nervous system drop down a couple notches to where you're not constantly in cortisol shake.
Right.
Because that's what it is. Control gives you idea of safety to where it lowers your nervous system down, like we had on the previous podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Brain override and short circuit.
Right. No,
allow it to happen.
It's a lot, but it's great because eventually there's a piece on the other end of that. It's this like panic fight, and then eventually it's like, oh, okay, let's just let it happen.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
But you kind of have to. It's just over and over and over, and it gets a little bit better each iteration, each arc. Maybe that's its own arc too.
Well, it's just hitting on safety. So you're facing the unsafety over and over and over and over. Yeah, no, that's what it is. I'm still watching my brain basically short circuit out and then have to go into the unsafety, and I have to like face the unsafety and go, oh my gosh, look at this. It's just it's with me, it's really, really visceral because my unsafety has so much density built into it. Like it's hitting. I think what's happening to me right now is I'm hitting the very, very visceral, dense matter of my being. But it's interesting because on the other end, I get to experience these crazy, right, as I'm struggling with unsafety and trying to de-densify and integrate it. What I'm experiencing is influx of, super conscious information basically coming into all knowing, the crazy amount of all knowing, which will come in as you start to work on this. Your psychic or your intuitive powers will just like skyrocket, because the second you start release the density, you open to the pranic flow of the infinite. You allow universal information to come in, and you have all of this knowledge that is outside of realm of possibilities.
Right. There have been plenty of times. I mean, just like your driving story, where it's like you're guided to do something that like doesn't make sense and you would normally not do, but.
Yeah, just don't question it, because realize that you're receiving higher
whether
wisdom.
Or not it's obvious in the end that was the right thing to do. Like with yours, it was more obvious that it's the right thing to do. But there have been plenty of mine where I'm like, I don't know why I'm supposed to not pass this car,
Yeah.
you know, but if I had passed, would something bad have happened? Maybe, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I didn't pass and then nothing bad happened. So
Well,
I don't know.
it's not, half of the time, it's not even the avoidance of something bad. The universe designs the most easiest flow, right? So the goal of the entire system is to have uninterrupted, endless flow without any barriers. So like harmonious frequency. The frequency of the universe is utmost harmony, right? That uninterrupted flow is a frequency of harmony. There's no blockages. It's just on endless flow. And so the universe quite literally is always trying to get you to surrender into harmony. I say this realizing that the school is called Harmony. That the elementary school that we go to is called Harmony. Right. So it's the harmonious flow of the universe that will be surrendering in if you allow yourself to recognize the construct of your belief system that is yours. It is not anyone's fault. It is just your choice into this earthly interpretation thus far. It's just a limiting construct by the mere nature that was your mission on earth.
Right.
And it's beautiful within itself. And so it's almost like you get to choose these arcs and do I want the limiting construct to be it? Or if the universe is allowing me to open, right? If my being, it came here to experience these arc of karmic cycles and then release them and go somewhere else and go into this unlimited potential. Right now you get to make that choice,
right?
Which is beautiful, right? The fact that at least I am, I know you are, but I'm sure we're not the only two people who are currently being able to make that choice.
Right, right.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's good stuff.
Right. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.